You know, it's easy to think that today's heaters, sleek, electric, and high-tech, represent the peak of human innovation. But in the frozen chaos of World War I, when soldiers fought not only against enemies, but against the cold itself, something remarkable was born. A tiny metal tin that could keep you alive. A weapon not of war, but of survival. It was called the Tommy Cooker, and it's one of the most ingenious, overlooked inventions ever made. When winter rolled across the battlefields of Europe, it wasn't always bullets or bombs that were the deadliest foe. It was the cold. Trenches filled with freezing mud, icy water up to the knees, nights without fire or shelter. Men shivered in soaked uniforms, hands too numb to even hold a rifle. And open flames? Impossible. One flicker of smoke, and an entire platoon's position was compromised. The human need for warmth, however, never changes. Not in war, not in peace. And that's when ingenuity stepped in. Somewhere in the supply lines of the British Army, engineers and chemists began experimenting. How do you give a soldier heat without firewood, smoke, or noise? The answer came in the form of a pocket-sized stove, no bigger than a tobacco tin. It looked simple, a dull metal container with what looked like wax inside. But when lit, it transformed into a steady, clean flame that could boil water, heat food, or dry a soaked glove. This tiny device was dubbed the Tommy Cooker, Tommy being slang for the average British soldier. And what made it truly revolutionary wasn't its appearance, it was its fuel. The Tommy Cooker used something that was way ahead of its time: solidified alcohol fuel. The same kind of chemistry we now use in gel burners or camp stoves. It was a mix of methylated spirits, alcohol treated to make it undrinkable, thickened into a jelly-like solid using salts such as calcium acetate. This gel burned hot, steady, and nearly smokeless. No pressurized gas, no moving parts, no leaks. Just a reliable source of heat that could be lit even in a freezing wind. It was simple science solving a deadly problem. Soldiers quickly learned to depend on it. They would crouch in dugouts, pull out a battered tin, spark it to life, and hover over it to warm their hands. Some balanced mess tins on makeshift wire stands to cook tea or stew. Others used it to dry socks, melt snow for water, or heat up hard rations. It wasn't glamorous, but in the mud and misery of the trenches, it was a lifeline. Because when the temperature dropped below zero and you couldn't risk making smoke, a silent flame meant survival. Now think about this. Modern portable heaters and stoves often rely on propane, butane, or electricity. All efficient until they're not. Cold kills butane pressure. Batteries die in minutes. Propane tanks can leak or explode. But the Tommy Cooker? It burned a gel fuel that didn't freeze, didn't leak, and didn't explode. You could dent it, drop it, even soak it in water, and once dried, it still worked. Its simplicity made it unstoppable. Replicas built by historians today prove just how efficient it really was. A Tommy Cooker could boil half a liter of water in about 10 minutes using only a few ounces of fuel. And it did so quietly, with no visible smoke trail. That's stealth and practicality. The two things any soldier or survivalist values most. Even modern ultralight stoves struggle to match that balance between safety and output. What made the Tommy Cooker even more special was how easily it could be remade. If you ran out, you could improvise one. All you needed was a small tin. An old sardine can worked fine, and some alcohol gel. You'd pour it halfway, let it thicken, light it up, and you had instant heat. Once you were done, you'd snuff it out with the lid, store it, and reuse it later. It was the kind of practicality that soldiers, explorers, and even survivalists dream about today. A tool that didn't just perform once, it performed forever, with whatever you had. So how did this magical fuel work? Solidified alcohol burned clean because it vaporized slowly. That meant no thick smoke, no smell, and very little soot. And because it was a gel, it couldn't spill. A crucial feature in the cramped, muddy trenches. You could even tilt the tin sideways, and the flame would keep burning evenly. That same chemistry now powers emergency heat packs, restaurant burners, and survival kits, all descendants of that little wartime invention. Frontline troops didn't just use it as is, they improved it. Some soldiers made wire frames to suspend pots. Others built tiny shields from ration tins to block the wind. Some even modified the lid to control oxygen flow, an early version of a flame regulator. These were the kind of practical, on-the-fly innovations that made the British trenches not just battlegrounds, but laboratories of survival. When supply chains failed, soldiers learned to be engineers. After the war, veterans didn't forget it. Many recreated their own Tommy cookers for camping, hiking, or home emergencies. For decades, the design was copied in civilian camping stoves, from Esbit tablets to Trangia burners. You can trace almost every modern portable stove design back to this one small wartime tin. It proved something profound. The simplest designs are the most enduring. The Tommy cooker's DNA lives on in every gel fuel burner and alcohol stove made today. For modern preppers, campers, or off-grid explorers, the Tommy cooker isn't just a relic. It's a lesson in resilience. You don't need expensive gear to survive. You need simplicity, reliability, and adaptability. In a world dependent on lithium batteries and fragile tech, a handmade stove that works on basic chemistry might just be more valuable than any gadget in your backpack. During blackouts, winter storms, or natural disasters, electricity vanishes first. Propane becomes scarce. But alcohol? It's everywhere. In cleaning supplies, medical kits, and fuels. You can make gel fuel in minutes using ethanol and calcium acetate, the same process used by soldiers over a century ago. And suddenly, that forgotten trench stove becomes a modern survival tool again. The Tommy cooker tells a story that's bigger than a stove. It's about human adaptability, the ability to take the smallest, simplest resources and turn them into life-saving tools. It's about engineers, soldiers, and ordinary people using creativity to beat impossible odds. In every quiet flame of that little stove burned a reminder. Even in war, the spark of invention never dies. The Tommy cooker was born in mud and misery, but its legacy burns bright. It remains one of history's most underrated survival tools, proof that the best inventions come from necessity, not luxury. So the next time you light a camp stove or prepare a bug-out kit, remember the soldiers who did it first, with nothing but courage, ingenuity, and a tin of fire. If you enjoyed this story of forgotten survival tech, make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the inventions that shaped resilience itself. Because sometimes the smallest flames leave the longest shadows.